Clara was released from the hospital a day earlier than expected. It was just a minor surgery, but her body still felt heavy, sore, and her heart longed for one thing: home. She imagined Nathan's voice over the phone, surprised and excited. She imagined his arms around her, his lips on her forehead. That quiet evening, she dreamed of dinner on the couch, soft music in the background, maybe even a glass of wine and a warm blanket. She didn't call him. She wanted to surprise him. A small gesture of love like old times. The cab ride felt longer than usual. Maybe it was the traffic, or maybe it was her excitement pulsing gently beneath the surface pain. The sun outside was fading into gold, casting a gentle light across the city. And Clara? She was ready to go home, to heal, to be with the man she trusted most. She didn't know that trust was already shattered. She imagined it perfectly. The soft glow of the living room lamp, the faint scent of vanilla from the candle she always kept by the window. Nathan standing in the kitchen, barefoot, smiling in surprise. There would be a gentle hug, a warm kiss, maybe a soft, "You're home early," followed by his arms wrapping around her waist like he used to do. She'd tell him about the doctor's news, how the recovery was going well, how the nurses called her a fighter, and Nathan would look at her like she was his whole world. They'd eat takeout together, laugh a little, and maybe, just maybe, fall asleep on the couch watching reruns of their favorite show. Clara had rehearsed this in her mind on the way home. This moment, this simplicity, this peace. What she didn't know was that the candle had long since burned out, and the man she loved had already lit a different flame with someone else. The hallway felt too quiet. No sound of typing, no hum of Nathan's voice on the work call. Just silence, thick, unnatural, as if the apartment was holding its breath. Clara took one slow step after another. Her body ached, but it wasn't the stitches. It was something deeper, unexplainable. Then she saw it. The bedroom door slightly ajar. A sliver of light slipped into the hallway. She reached for it, and in one quiet push, the door creaked open. Time stopped. There, tangled in the sheets of their bed, the bed they'd chosen together at a furniture store, laughed on, cried on, made love on, was Nathan, naked, with another woman. His arm draped casually around her waist, their skin touching, their eyes closed, until they noticed Clara standing there, frozen like a ghost. Her breath caught in her throat. Her heart didn't break, it collapsed. The world blurred. The sounds disappeared. There was no scream, no fury, only stillness. Like a glass heart shattering in complete silence. She didn't scream, she didn't cry, she didn't ask, "How could you?" She didn't slap, throw, or shout. She just stood there. And something inside her, something soft, trusting, loyal, quietly died. Clara looked at Nathan, but she didn't see her husband. She saw a stranger, a man who had made their home a lie, a man who touched another woman while his wife was healing in a hospital bed. But still, no tears. She turned around. Step by step, she walked out of the bedroom, down the hall, past the mug of cold coffee, past the folded laundry she had left before surgery, and out the door. Click. She closed it gently, the way you'd close a book you never want to reread again. Nathan didn't follow. He didn't say a word. He just sat there in stunned silence, realizing he hadn't broken her. He'd awakened something far more dangerous. Her decision. She didn't go to a hotel. She didn't wander the streets. She called the only person who would understand without needing 100 explanations, Rachel. Rachel had been her best friend since college. Sharp, intuitive, fearless, and a damn good attorney. Years ago, over wine and heartbreak, Rachel once said, "A silent woman isn't weak. She's just waiting to burn it all down on her own terms." Clara never forgot that. So now, with her hands trembling and her voice hollow, she dialed, and Rachel, like always, answered on the first ring. Clara, I'm out of the hospital. You okay? No, not even close. Can I come over? Door's open. Come now. Rachel didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. She knew. Because when a woman speaks with that kind of voice, low, controlled, tired of being hurt, you don't ask questions. You stand ready. Rachel didn't comfort with tissues. She comforted with a plan. Within minutes, the living room was transformed into a war room. Laptop open, notepad ready. And Clara, still shaken, still pale, sat wrapped in a blanket holding a mug of untouched tea. "We take control now," Rachel said, voice low and sharp. "One move at a time. First, freeze the accounts." Nathan had access to their joint savings and Clara's credit lines. Rachel walked her through every phone call, the bank, the credit card companies, the mortgage office. Clara's voice trembled at first, but call by call she steadied. By the fifth call, she sounded like a woman reclaiming her name. Second block, everything. Rachel helped her reset passwords, social media, email, cloud storage, even Netflix, just to be thorough. Third, change the locks. Not tomorrow, not next week, tonight. Rachel called a trusted locksmith while Clara packed a small overnight bag. "Tell him to bring the strongest lock he's got," Rachel said firmly, and fast. This wasn't about rage. This was about protection. About Clara finally saying, no more access, no more control, no more him. Clara didn't storm into the apartment. She walked in, calm, composed, unrecognizable even to herself. The locksmith had come and gone. The new locks clicked with authority, sealing Nathan out for good. The air still smelled like betrayal, but Clara didn't flinch. She moved through the space methodically. Every drawer she opened, every shirt she folded, was a quiet declaration, this chapter is over. She packed Nathan's clothes with clinical precision. Button-downs folded crisp, jeans rolled tight, his toiletries, every bottle, every razor, sealed into zippered pouches. Even his beloved cologne, the one that used to make her weak at the knees, now made her stomach turn. She wasn't throwing him out in anger. She was releasing him like a burden that no longer belonged to her. She even packed his passport, his insurance papers, and his favorite watch, the one she gifted him on their 3rd anniversary. No notes, no drama, just the quiet efficiency of a woman who's done loving a liar. And when she zipped the last suitcase closed, she whispered to no one in particular, "Goodbye." Nathan came home like it was any other evening, a little too confident, a little too calm. He even rehearsed what he would say, how he'd spin the affair, twist it into some emotional confusion. He took the stairs 2 at a time, his jacket slung over one shoulder, phone in hand, preparing for damage control. But when he reached the door, something didn't feel right. He slid his key in, tried to turn it. Click. Nothing. He pulled it out, tried again, harder. Still nothing. His brow furrowed. He tried the spare key. Still no luck. He knocked, then knocked harder. Then pounded. "Clara!" Silence. He pulled out his phone. Called. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Nothing. He stepped back from the door, confusion giving way to irritation, then disbelief. The key didn't work, because it was no longer his door. That's when he saw them. 2 suitcases, a leather duffel, a shoebox with his name on it, and a zipped folder labeled neatly in Clara's handwriting, documents. Nathan blinked. As if his brain couldn't process what his eyes were showing him. His belongings, all of them, were stacked outside like trash waiting for pickup. Not thrown, not tossed, but packed, carefully, deliberately. He dropped his phone, bent down, unzipped the main suitcase, his cologne, his chargers, his razor, all there. And that's when panic kicked in. He pounded on the door, harder, then louder. "Clara, what is this? Open the door!" No response. He called again. Straight to voicemail. He texted, "What are you doing? Don't overreact. We need to talk seriously." Still silence. For the first time, Nathan realized she wasn't bluffing. She wasn't waiting. She was done. And everything he thought he controlled, she just packed it up and left it in the hallway. Nathan had always controlled the conversation. He knew how to twist words, how to cry at just the right time, how to turn guilt into sympathy. He was a master of messy apologies. The kind that left women confused, unsure whether to slap him or hug him. But now, there was no conversation to control. Just a door, just silence, just him sweating in a hallway that had suddenly become his courtroom. The neighbors peeked out. Curtains shifted. Someone across the hall whispered, "Isn't that Clara's husband?" He didn't care. He banged again, harder, desperate. "Clara, stop this! You're overreacting. We need to talk like adults. This is our home." Still no response. Not a voice, not a footstep, not even a flicker of light under the door. He sat down, on top of his own suitcase, head in hands, breathing hard. That's when it hit him. She didn't block him out to punish him. She blocked him out because she no longer needed him. And that shattered him. "I need to tell you something," Rachel said one evening, her eyes dark with restraint. Clara sat across from her in the apartment, sipping tea, finally breathing a little easier after days of chaos. Rachel pulled out a thin folder. Quiet, precise. She didn't hand it over. She opened it and read aloud. "He contacted a divorce attorney 3 weeks before your surgery." Clara blinked. "What?" Rachel nodded grimly. "He asked about how to protect assets, specifically how to make sure he got a share of the apartment if you two separated." Clara's breath caught in her chest. He planned to wait until the mortgage was almost paid off, by you. Then he'd file claim half and walk. A cold chill ran through Clara's body. Not just betrayal, strategy. Nathan hadn't just fallen out of love. He had calculated the collapse, watched her fight for their future while plotting how to split the spoils. She wasn't a wife to him. She was an investment waiting to mature. And once it did, he was ready to cash out. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It wasn't about lust. It wasn't about falling out of love. It was about leverage. Nathan had watched Clara make every mortgage payment, every check, every transfer, every financial sacrifice. She skipped vacations, said no to new shoes, cut back on dinners out, all to build a future they supposedly shared. But he had been counting, quietly, patiently. He knew the moment the mortgage balance hit a certain point, he'd strike. Divorce her. Take half the equity. Move on. To him, Clara was a strategic delay, a stepping stone, a workhorse carrying them both across a finish line he never planned to cross with her. This wasn't heartbreak. This was fraud. He hadn't just cheated her emotionally, he had been using her financially down to the dollar. And the most sickening part? He would have succeeded if she hadn't come home early. She didn't scream. She didn't throw his clothes out the window. She didn't burn pictures or post cryptic messages online. Clara just sat there, at Rachel's kitchen table, pen in hand, a stack of papers in front of her. Rachel had drafted the entire petition. Every line was sharp, precise, surgical. It asked for full rights to the apartment, no spousal support, no financial ties, no negotiation. It locked Nathan out of everything, her accounts, her assets, her future. Clara read every word, then signed her name. Slowly, steadily. Like closing the final chapter of a book that once meant everything and now meant absolutely nothing. When she handed the papers back, Rachel didn't say a word. She just nodded once and stood up to file the motion first thing in the morning. Nathan wouldn't see it coming, because in his mind, Clara was still broken, still waiting, still hoping. But Clara had left the story. And all that remained was paperwork and a woman no longer afraid of losing what she never truly had. The morning after the papers were filed, Clara turned off notifications. But Nathan didn't know that. His messages came like a flood. Desperate, contradictory, classic. 8:12 a.m. Clara, please, we need to talk. 8:19 a.m. It didn't mean anything, I swear. 8:26 a.m. You're overreacting. 8:41 a.m. It was a moment of weakness, a mistake. Please don't throw us away. 9:03 a.m. You think you're strong now? You'll regret this. 9:27 a.m. You know I love you. Come on, Clara. It was the full cycle. Guilt, shame, gaslight, threat, affection, all crammed into a morning of chaos from a man who had lost control. Clara didn't open the messages. She didn't delete them either. She just let them sit, unread, powerless. Each ping on her phone another reminder of who he really was and who she no longer was. She wasn't the woman who'd take the bait. She wasn't his emotional hostage. She was silent, and in that silence, she was free. Rachel didn't just write the papers. She became the wall between Clara and the world. Every text from Nathan, blocked. Every call from mutual friends who just wanted to check in, redirected to voicemail. Rachel answered the door. Rachel answered the emails. Rachel answered the questions Clara shouldn't have to hear. Are you sure it wasn't just a misunderstanding? Don't you think you should talk to him at least once? Marriage is complicated. Maybe it's not what you think. Rachel shut it all down. No, she doesn't owe him closure. You don't get to rewrite Betrayal just because it makes you uncomfortable. She handled the bank updates, the filings, the court prep. She even reviewed the utilities to make sure Nathan couldn't sneak back into Clara's financial life through a forgotten auto payment. Rachel didn't let Clara get dragged back into the drama. Not by guilt, not by pressure, not even by curiosity. She gave Clara something precious, space to heal without interruption. It should have been hard, selling the place where they'd laughed, danced, barefoot, planned babies, argued over paint colors. It should have been heartbreaking, but it wasn't. Clara walked through the apartment one last time. She didn't cry, she didn't linger. She looked at the photos, the smiling faces, the vacations, the birthdays, and saw something she hadn't seen before. A woman trying too hard to believe in a man who never deserved her. This wasn't a home anymore. It was a beautiful box filled with echoes she no longer needed. Nathan had tainted the space, but worse, he had made her question whether she was foolish for believing in love. And Clara refused to stay in any place where she had to shrink just to fit, so she sold it. Fast, clean, quiet. No sentiment, no second guessing. She took the money, packed her books, her plants, her favorite chair, and left behind the guilt, the illusion, the betrayal. Sometimes healing doesn't come from holding on. Sometimes it comes from locking the door and never looking back. It was smaller. No marble countertops, no dual sinks, no his and hers closets, but it was hers. Clara moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the top floor of a quiet building. The windows let in the morning sun, and the walls, they didn't echo with arguments. They didn't remember betrayal. They were blank, a fresh canvas. She painted one wall soft sage green, her favorite, hung fairy lights above the kitchen sink, bought houseplants and named them silly names like Marvin and Hope. For the first time in years, every corner of her space was her choice. No compromise. No, what would Nathan think? Just Clara. She unpacked slowly, intentionally. Her books lined the shelf alphabetically. Her throw pillows matched. The kitchen smelled like lemon and lavender. This wasn't about starting over with someone new. This was about meeting herself again. And as she curled up in her new reading nook, tea in hand, sunlight spilling across her knees, she whispered something she hadn't said in a long time. Welcome home. Michael didn't enter her life like a storm. He arrived more like a season, gradual, gentle, quiet enough to be missed, but steady enough to stay. They met at a local bookstore. She reached for a copy of The Art of Letting Go. So did he. They both laughed, then paused. and neither pulled their hand back. They talked about books, music, childhood fears, and coffee preferences. He didn't ask what had happened to her. He didn't probe. He just listened like a man who wasn't there to fix, but to witness. Michael didn't promise forever. He didn't say, "I'll never hurt you." He just showed up again and again until his presence felt like furniture. Familiar, warm, solid. He didn't rush her healing. He waited. And somehow, in all that quiet waiting, he taught Clara something powerful. Love doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, "I'm here, and I'm not leaving." It didn't happen all at once. There was no fireworks moment, no kiss in the rain, no dramatic confessions. It happened slowly, over shared coffee, over quiet walks, over Sunday mornings when silence felt comforting, not empty. Clara didn't fall in love with Michael. She walked into it, eyes open, heartbeat steady, walls still up, but no longer fortified with fear. She told him her story one night, curled on the couch, blanket wrapped around her knees. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize for the scars. She simply laid them out and waited. Michael didn't flinch, didn't pity. He just held her hand. Not tighter, not possessively, just present. And that's when Clara realized she was loving differently now. Not out of loneliness, not out of need, but out of clarity. This wasn't a love built on blind trust. This was a love built on earned trust. And for the first time in years, Clara loved without losing herself. People asked her, "Don't you want him to suffer? Don't you want him to regret losing you? Don't you want revenge?" But Clara didn't. She wasn't interested in feeding her pain. She was interested in burying it. Not out of denial, but because some things don't deserve memorials. She didn't hate Nathan. She pitied him. Not because he lost a good woman, but because he would never know what it meant to be one, to rebuild from ruin, to walk away with dignity. He wanted to take from her peace, her trust, her spirit. But what Clara discovered is that when you walk away in silence, you take back more than just your name. You reclaim your voice, your joy, your worth, and no revenge can match that. Clara's story was never just about heartbreak. It was never just about betrayal. It was about freedom, about choosing yourself when someone else refuses to, about understanding that silence can speak louder than screaming. She didn't throw things. She didn't beg. She didn't turn into someone she wasn't just to prove a point. She simply walked away and rebuilt, brick by brick, boundary by boundary, breath by breath. To every woman who's been told, "Just forgive him," to every woman who's been called too emotional, too cold, too much, Clara's life is a reminder. You are allowed to leave. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to begin again without needing to fall apart first. And no, you do not need to cry to be heard. Sometimes the world only listens when a woman stops speaking and starts walking. Clara stood by her window one morning, coffee in hand, watching the city breathe beneath a soft gold sky. And for the first time when she thought of that day, she didn't flinch. No burning in her chest, no bitterness in her throat, just quiet. She remembered the hospital gown, the creak of the apartment door, the sight in the bedroom. And then her feet moving, her silence roaring, her soul choosing itself. It no longer felt like pain. It felt like a beginning. And strangely, Clara felt something she hadn't expected, gratitude. Because if that day hadn't happened, if the betrayal hadn't been so loud, she might have stayed. She might have kept loving someone who was only pretending to love her back. She might have never discovered how deeply a woman can break and still rebuild herself with grace. She smiled. Not because it was funny, but because she had survived. And this time when Clara looked back, it didn't hurt. It simply reminded her she made it. Not everyone who walks away is weak, and not everyone who stays silent is defeated. Clara taught us that strength isn't always loud. Sometimes the loudest strength is the quiet step out of a toxic place, not to destroy anyone, but to protect your peace. You are allowed to leave. You are allowed to begin again. You are allowed to rewrite your story without anyone's permission. Love yourself enough to know when to let go. And trust that what's on the other side of the door might just be freedom. If you've ever been quiet because it hurt too much, if you've ever picked yourself up alone, or if you just need stories that help you heal and feel again, hit that subscribe button and stay with us. Every story here is a reminder you're not alone, and it's never too late to start over.